Robert Andrade with the respiratory system verbal quiz. First, we will start off with the nasal cavity. It's this space right here, and it's just the hollow space behind the nose. You cannot see the septum that would be right there, but it divides it into right and left parts. Also, you cannot see the nasal conchae, which are bones and processes that are going to curl out from the lateral walls of that nasal cavity. It supports the mucous membrane and it increases the surface area. Next, we have paranasal sinuses. You can only see two from this angle. We have the frontal sinus and the sphenoid sinus. The other two that we can't see are ethmoid and maxillary, and they all open into the nasal cavity. They're lined with mucous membranes. They reduce the weight of the skull, and they are resonant chambers for the sound of your voice. Next is the pharynx, and that is right here, and it's commonly called the throat. It's the space behind the oral, nasal cavities, and the epiglottis. It transitions down here into the esophagus, and it's the passageway for food and air, and it also helps produce the sound of speech. And right over here is the larynx, which is your voice box, and being that it's your voice box, it's going to contain the vocal cords. The larynx itself is an enlargement at the airway at the top of the trachea. The epiglottis, right here, ensures that only air enters. It contains false and true vocals. The openings between the vocal cords that you obviously can't see in this drawing are called the glottis. And right here is the epiglottis that we just spoke on. That allows the air to enter the larynx. And where's my trachea? Trachea is right here. And that, of course, is your windpipe. It's a flexible cylindrical tube, 2.5 centimeters in diameter, if I remember correctly. And it's 12.5 centimeters in length. It goes downward in front of the esophagus. And it's going to go down to the thoracic cavity. I'm not sure which vertebrae it reaches. See, and this is the bronchial tree, and they're just the branched airways leading from the trachea to the microscopic air sacs in the lungs. Of course, they branch out into left and right. Goes from secondary bronchi to the second one, I believe, maybe called the secondary bronchi, and then there's the tertiary bronchi. And the tertiary are those little branches. From there, it would go to bronchioles. Eventually to the alveolar sacs, and that's going to exchange the gas between the air and the bloodstream. Oxygen is going to diffuse from the alveoli into the blood at these sites, and then carbon dioxide is going to diffuse into the blood, into the alveoli. And of course, where these were that we were just talking about, they're inside the lungs. The lungs are simply put where the air goes that you breathe in, but they're soft, spongy, cone-shaped organs of the thoracic cavity. The right lung is slightly larger. It has 3 lobes, right superior, right middle, and right inferior. And of course, here's the left lung. It has 2 lobes, the inferior and superior. Because it's got a little cardiac crest where the heart goes, I can't really see it that well in my picture. And the importance of red blood cells is that 98% of oxygen that blood transports, the hemoglobin is binded in those red blood cells. And my next drawing here, we have the bronchioles going down here to the alveoli. And they come down here. This is the pulmonary artery. And we have the capillaries. The blue ones represent unoxygenated. The oxygen's going to come in here, and each of these blue capillaries here is going to be connected to a red capillary. That's where the oxygenated is going to leave. So, where they meet, it's the exchange of CO2 by diffusion. There's no energy required. So, once again, it's going to come in through the pulmonary artery to the arterioles, and we have the capillaries. Blue ones represent unoxygenated. The red ones are oxygenated, and that's going to go back up and eventually to the venules and the veins, most specifically the pulmonary vein, and it's going to find its way back to the heart, to the left atrium.